All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back after 2 weeks, I think. Sorry we were off for so long. I fell ill, and I couldn't speak. Um, and then last week, oh, that's right, I graduated. I got my master's, and so we had a graduation party, and couldn't do the show. We had lots of family over and whatnot. So now we're back. Yay! I know you're all so excited. Okay, joining me today is my host and co-host Peter of Gonna Go For It fame.
Hello, and congratulations.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you. It
I was
was a
able
grand.
I was able to post
Mhm.
the unphotoshopped picture of your graduation to Hogwarts.
I saw that and I appreciated it immensely.
Yeah,
Yes,
even though people told me that Dumbledore had died, but um, he
he's
should.
magic.
Well, he did show up when Harry Potter got zapped. So
It's true. He did.
so why wouldn't he show up at your graduation? I mean, that's much more important, right?
That's true. I am. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Cat ran in when he should not have. So be right back.
Okay.
That's a limit to your juggling skills.
My juggling skills. Okay. I have no clue how to juggle. So
No.
no, I don't have anything
No.
to juggle. The only thing that I have right here is I was actually looking up how to say that. I have marrow bones, which doesn't sound good, but it's a kind of Dutch pastry. It's quite good actually. So we got a lot of people already in the chat, so I'll just hop over there. We've got
Okay. Sorry about that.
yeah, we've got Majestic
Okay.
Feedback,
Yes.
Vesta
Majestic
Freya,
feedback.
Jamie
And
E,
Jamie E, Doorknob Head, Trail Mix, DM, Current Issues in
Issues in
Science
Science
Wing.
Wing.
Yeah, do we say Doorknob Head?
Yeah,
I think we did. Yes. Hello everyone. Sorry if my cat's in here while we're doing the show. He's gonna want to leave in 20 minutes, and then I would just have to get up anyways to let him back out. So I was like, nope, you're going back out. So anyway,
see, and
Dragon Spartan 90 official.
my dog is here, completely asleep, because that's how we did a show with Natalia Reagan, and for some reason, my dog thought that that was you. So before we started the
Mm.
show, I was attacked and mauled by my dog, and just managed to settle him down just before the show started. Which,
Well, that's
yeah,
good. I
uh,
thought you were talking.
no, go ahead, go ahead. Don't.
Darwinism is a YEC myth, and in the real, we just call it science. It's true. We do, in fact, do that. DM current issues in Science Wing.
I think Doorknob Head should change his name. He said Dumbledore Knob Head. I actually like that.
Dumbledore Knobhead.
Dumbledore Knob
Yeah,
Head.
yeah. So I now have uh my master's in organismal biology. So yay! Um,
That is
I
cool.
defended my thesis. What, last month? Was it last month or started this month? One of those. I think it was last month.
It was last month.
And
Yeah.
yeah, did that. Then had to go through a long and arduous process of sending it to 25 different people. I being hyperbolic only slightly. Um, and then had to get it like printed and sent to the university's library and all that sort of stuff. So it was so much fun. Oh my goodness, let me tell you,
See,
so much fun.
that's your our lives couldn't be more different. I mean, you got a master's in the same time that I was just regrowing my thumb, which is now working again.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that your thumb is working.
It's still slightly discolored, as you can see. It's a lot more purple than the
it's
rest of
could
my.
you could you change it to where there's just one screen? I see myself and our two screens.
Oh, oh shit. Sure. Hold on. Uh,
Okay, there we
yeah.
go.
And now I have to refresh because it's messing up. Okay, so there we
Okay,
go.
now show your thumb again. It was small on my screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's still
Oh man.
slightly discolored, but
Yeah.
it's working. I can grip things again, and I can hold the saw that I used to saw it in half with again, which is kind of cool.
Oh,
So
I'm glad that your thumb is working and is all back in one piece again. That is very good.
I mean, I still have it handy. Super glue, which was very useful. It's I just glued it back together and then didn't go to the hospital, and it just grew
Oh
back.
my god.
I
Oh my
mean,
gosh, you're ridiculous.
if you're gonna do
Uh
DIY, then you should do everything DIY, right?
uh I don't know if I can agree with that on camera on screen where our words are being recorded. Dumble Doorknob Head says defending your thesis is showing that you've added something novel to the field of science. Yes. So, my thesis was on oh, I've already forgotten. No, just kidding. My thesis was on characterizing the microstructure of the elytra of a couple different, or well, a few, not a couple, really, uh, iridescent beetles. Well, a couple of them were iridescent. One was not iridescent, and we compared their elytra to see if they have the same mechanism of iridescence and what the non-iridescent elytra looks like in comparison. And so, did all that. Um, we also want to publish in a journal, so it's not published in a journal yet. It's only published in like the LSUS library, which I mean is still technically published, I guess, but not in a journal. So, um, what we would like to do is add a couple more things to it, and then try to get it published in like an actual entomological journal. So
Hmm,
that's the plan.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm,
Um.
I'm just looking. Majestic Peabeck said my friend just saw this thumb with a skill saw. What are you guys doing? Well, he used a skill saw. I went medieval. I used a saber saw. See? That's a difference.
What does it say? Now that you have your master's, are you going to get your PhD from Patriot U? They require a master's for entering the PhD program, right? Do they? I feel like I feel like they shouldn't because otherwise, how would they get applicants to their program?
Yeah.
It's kind of like getting a degree from PragerU. It's like you must have no degrees at all, or post maybe post primary school education at all if you're trying to apply to PragerU. But anyways, which isn't a university. Just so you know. Neither is Discovery U. It's also not a university, and we've
Nope.
been going through that,
Yeah.
um, piece by piece, and understanding very intimately why it is not a university
Mhm.
because they just lie and they cite nothing. There are
A-
literally zero citations in any of their work.
And I can vouch for it that the thing that we're going to do today, because I hate Berlinski. I can't stand that guy. The smug presence. I mean, watching him is much more painful than sawing your thumb into. Honestly,
Really,
yeah,
and you can say with firsthand knowledge of that.
I know this exactly, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know this.
Mm.
It's he's so irritating to watch. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm having a really hard time. So I'll be just looking away to a different screen. I've got multiple screens here, so I can have something nice over there, and then Berlinski over there, so I don't have to watch it.
Well, they all have an air of smugness, don't they? I
Yeah,
think, in some degree, or to some degree, like, Behe, Meyer, Berlinski, what's his name? Galerner,
Hmm.
Lennox. We looked at a video with him in it. Um, what was it? Calvin Smith. They all have some degree of arrogance to them, because they, think that they know more than the entire scientific community, and yet here they are, just chatting, not publishing papers, not attempting to overturn, any fields of science. They're just writing popular level books and being like, look at what we've written. Here's a book that I wrote. Take me seriously. And it's like, no. In fairness, some people, some of the stuff that they write is taken seriously because every so often they'll publish a paper in some nothing journal,
Hmm.
and then they can say, "Ah, look, we've got a real paper published. It was peer reviewed." Well, of course, what happens is like when they publish in, what is it, like, the Journal of Theoretical Biology or whatever. Um, the reviewers don't check the biology, they check the math. And so if the math is fine, then they're like, "Ah, it's fine. The paper's fine." But if a biologist looks at it and says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 you're using some crazy assumptions that we would never use when modeling anything in biology," then they're just like, "Ah, we don't care. We don't care about
Hmm.
that."
And
Which is, oh, go ahead.
yeah, Icarus pointed out Gelernter, that's German for the learned one. Not
Is
kidding.
it? Oh dear.
Yes, it is.
Oh, tragic. Well, I'm sure he's very learned in, what was it, computer engineering, I think, or computer science, something like that. He was some kind of computer expert, but he was brought in to talk about biology, which is ostensibly not computer science.
Well, you
Um,
know that DNA is like a computer code, right? I mean, it's
oh, yeah.
see, that's how they do it. It's
We were
it's
actually,
it's the
we
software
were
that
looking
makes up the organisms for some
that
silly reason.
that's true. In this same vein, um, I was looking at a tweet with some biologists earlier. There was a paper that was it was like it was never published. There was a preprint that did not pass peer review, and it makes sense why it didn't pass peer review. This paper said that according to like Moore's law, life should have existed 5 billion years ago, and of course, Jordan Peterson, the wacky, um, psychologist or psychiatrist, I can't remember which one, from Canada, of course, he retweeted it. Now, Moore's law is with regard to transistors. It has nothing to do. I'm not totally familiar with it what the parameters of Moore's law are. But the fact of the matter, it's about transistors. It's not about biology. But they were like, ah, if you just go backwards and or if you make like a plot of the size of organismal genomes, then the if you like, you know, make the if you give it a certain slope, then the slope comes out at like 5 billion years is when if you keep extrapolating it backwards in time is when according to this particular slope, life should have originated 5 billion years ago, and it's like that's not how that works at all. It has nothing to do with biology.
So basically, living organisms were floating around waiting for the Earth to form.
I guess so, or maybe they did panspermia from some other planet or something. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Moore's law says that the number of transistors doubles each 12 or 18 or 24 months from Icarus. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, I guess they took a bunch of genome sizes, plotted them, and then had a slope that said, well, if we, continue this trend backwards in time, we should estimate that life originated 5 billion years ago. I guess if you assume that like the first genome was one base pair in length, which that's not how that works at all, but okay. Um oh, Immutable. If you want to join Immutable, feel free. Feel free to come on. So anyways, yeah, very silly. But of course Jordan Peterson liked it because he's a very silly guy.
Another one that I can't listen to.
He reminds me of Kermit the Frog. He's like, "Hi ho,
Yeah,
Kermit the Frog here."
yeah.
You know.
Canadian Kermit
There's
the Frog. Mm.
there's a video on was it Vice Rhino's no, it wasn't Vice Rhino. It was Prophet of Zod, where it's like a Bible game show, and Ocean Skeptic or whatever his name was, the
Ocean Ocean
polytheist guy.
Ocean Keltoy.
Ocean Keltoy. There we go, Ocean Keltoy, yeah. He was Jordan Peterson in that video, and he was perfect. He was spot on. I don't know how he was so good at it.
Mm-mm.
Someone send you the link. Oh, I guess I can send it. I'll send it to you. Give me 1 sec. But yeah, it was perfect. It was spot on. Amazing work. Let me see. Immutable. I'll send it to you via Twitter. That's an insult to Kermit the Frog, you know? You're right.
It is. It is, but yeah, I mean, so is Otangelo. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. He does also sound like Kermit the Frog. But yeah, I mean, well, because he's always like, oh yes, the liberals want to make us live in contraptions that milk us every day. Stuff like that.
It depends. It depends on how you interpret that. But I'm Dutch, so I might be off completely.
No, Peter, you're actually interpreting it correctly because he accidentally liked a kink post on Twitter.
I heard
And
that.
his daughter saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his daughter saw him retweet it, so that was even funnier.
Yeah, that's gonna make for a good conversation.
Anyways, we're definitely demonetized by now. We should get to the video.
Yeah, let's do that. Who knows? Maybe that's
Okay, so the video we're looking at is David Berlinski is getting interviewed. I think it's on Fox. And it's Darwinism is a cult or something. So,
okay.
you know,
Let's
Immutable should be in shortly also.
Let's jump on in.
David Berlinski.
All right.
I want to talk today with you, and you're uniquely qualified to do this, about evolution,
though?
science, and progressivism, because there's a link through them all. You've written
Can we
about
pause
this
for a
and
moment?
spoken about this many.
Here, pause for a moment. Okay, let's remember. Berlinski is not a biologist. He's a mathematician, which I'm sure he's very smart mathematically. I would never question his credentials in math. Nothing to do with biology, nothing to do with progressivism. Not entirely sure what. Well, I suppose actually the book I'm reading right now is The War on Science, which is very good, and the author Sean Otto makes the argument that biology or science in general isn't necessarily progressive, though it can be in a lot of cases. But he would say it is necessarily anti-authoritarian, and that I would definitely agree with that. So yeah, he barely finished 8-second sentence. Immutable, did you see the link on Twitter? Did you see the link? I sent it to you on Twitter. Sorry, you're right. I cut him off. I don't know, but I don't really know what progressivism has to do with evolution. I mean, a lot of conservatives accept evolution too, so whatever. Okay. Anyways, we can keep going.
Well, before we keep going, I mean, you don't hear often that people say nice things about Fox News, but so because we're in the Christmas spirit already, and I really like to say something nice about Fox News. Genuinely nice. They
Okay.
Yeah, they made quite the effort. to make it so that the show that we're watching is completely color coded to the colors that we're using on this screen. Because if you see the blue in the frame, it's reflecting in the
you're
back.
Right. You're right. It is.
They did make an effort to make it look nice so we could review it. So
You're right. It's color coded.
Yes, we have to compliment them for that at least. So
that's so good. I love that.
See. Okay, let's continue.
Many times. Okay. You received your PhD in philosophy from Princeton University, later a postdoctoral fellow in mathematics and molecular biology at Columbia University. I'm glad I didn't take any of those courses.
I have to stop.
Okay, so I don't remember
the way he looks.
The molecular biology.
The way he did you see how he looked? He looked with this glare in his eye. So if you get one thing wrong, I'm going to smack you. And this is why I can't stand Berlinski. Just the look on his face. So waiting for the Fox News guy to make an error. Sorry.
Yeah.
My rant.
I didn't remember has written books about mathematics and the history of science, education, because on his academic career, hold on, because I'm curious now. I want to see. After his PhD, he was a research assistant in the Department of Biology at Columbia. He's taught philosophy, mathematics, and English at Stanford. Okay, but he doesn't have a degree in biology. As from what I can see, he doesn't have a degree in biology. He does have degrees in philosophy and math, which is still good. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's not easy to get those. So anyway, okay.
Senior fellow in the Discovery Institute Center for Science and Culture. You've taught philosophy, mathematics, English at Stanford, Rutgers, City University of New York, and in Paris. And you're now the editor of Inference, International Review of Science. Well, let's get started. You wrote a book about a decade ago that I read about a decade ago. And in doing this program, I started to think about it, and I said, I think it's important that we have this discussion about science, evolution, progressivism. And I want to start where you started. Let me read you one paragraph. I'm a secular Jew, you write. My religious education did not take. I can barely remember a word of Hebrew. I cannot pray. I've spent more years than I care to remember in studying mathematics and writing about the sciences. Yet, as you wrote in the preface of this book, the book that follows is in some sense a defense of religious thought and sentiment. Biblical verses are the least of it. A defense is needed because none has been forthcoming. The discussion has been ceded to men who regard religious belief with frivolous contempt. Their books have in recent years poured from every press, and although differing widely in their style, they're identical in their message, because scientific theories are true, religious beliefs must be false. From your book, The Devil's Delusion, Atheism and Its Scientific Pretensions. And that is the thesis. That is the foundational point of your book. Can you expand on that?
Well, something particular and peculiar seems to have come over American intellectual life, Anglo-American intellectual life, perhaps 20 years ago. In the 1950s and 1960s, the position that was academically tolerated was a kind of cheerful agnosticism with respect to the religious tradition of mankind. Could be with respect to God's existence, maybe, maybe not. But this isn't an issue that vexes us profoundly as members of the scientific community. That all changed. Now a kind of very, very vociferous and dogmatic atheism has become obligatory in the scientific community. There are exceptions.
All right,
there
let's pause on that.
Exceptions for all.
Let's pause on that. Okay, this is just nonsense. Nowhere in the scientific literature are you going to see anyone attacking religion. You're not going to see anyone pushing atheism. or agnosticism of any sort. The only people who try to push theism in science are these guys, are people like Berlinski and Michael Behe and Stephen Meyer. These are the people who are trying to do that. The scientific mainstream consensus is not trying to do that. They just aren't. I've read a non-trivial number of papers. I can say that with some degree of experience. But researchers themselves vary. They're all across the religious or non-religious, field. Some people are atheists, some people are agnostics, some people are theists. They're all over the place. It's ridiculous to try to say, "Oh, atheism has just fallen over science now." Well, some scientists are atheists, some aren't. I think proportionally there are more um, atheists and agnostics than there are theists in the scientific fields. But it's just nonsense to say that atheism has just like fallen over science. Um,
I
Furthermore, there are lots of what do you say?
Yeah, I think if he had been honest, he could have said that they are attacking religious organizations, which is correct
Hmm.
because
Right.
that is the people who we attack. We attack their ideas. It's stupid to say we're going to attack Christianity or Islam
Right.
because uh, in itself that doesn't do anything. It is the people in certain organizations. Not every Muslim is a science denier. Not every
Hmm.
Christian is a science denier. Not every other religion you could mention. Everyone in that religion is a science denier. It's just a fringe part of every religion. The fundamentalists who attack science, and those are the people
Hmm.
who will get attacked because they're lying to their followers. So they should
Right.
be attacked. But
When
yeah,
Berlinski is saying like atheism has fallen over science, what he means is he's referring to the popular atheist writers like Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett. He's referring to them. He's not
Mhm.
actually referring to the scientific consensus when he says that.
Oh,
Um, when Because his book, The Atheist Delusion, is a play on the title of Richard Dawkins' famous, I think 2004 book, The God Delusion, which, as far as atheist books go, you're better off with like The Big Picture by Sean Carroll, or an actual book on philosophy of religion by an atheist like Graham Oppy, or someone like that. Um, I wouldn't really recommend in terms of books by Dawkins that I've read. It was meh. Um, Dawkins has much better books about biology, and there are better books on atheism that I would recommend. But at any rate, that's what he means. But he's trying to paint these authors who are writing about religion and using science. Zach, if you want to come in on the show, feel free. We'd be happy to have you. Um, he's talking about them and acting as though they are the scientific consensus when they aren't. Hitchens, Dawkins, Harris, Dennett, they're not the consensus. They're just popular writers. Now, they are scientists too, to some extent. Well, except for Hitchens, I think he was a journalist. Um, but they're not the scientific consensus. He's just painting them with a broad brush and trying to act like he's the one under attack. Oh, it's all religions that are under attack. Ah. Oh, sorry. Wait. What'd you say? Can I get Jackson's response to which comment?
uh,
Which comment are you referring to, Aunt
I
Jer?
I think the one where she said I once asked my sister-in-law why are Christians so afraid of science, and she answered, "Why are scientists so afraid of Jesus?" I literally don't know a single scientist who is afraid of Jesus.
I I also don't. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Plus, there are a number of Catholic scientists who I know, so they're obviously
Hmm.
not afraid of Jesus, as well as a number of Protestants also. Um, Mary Schweitzer, Francis Collins, Robert Bacher, like these are all very devoutly religious people. Kenneth Miller,
Hmm.
um, and they have no problem with the scientific consensus. Like, whatever.
In all
That's
fairness,
fine, Zach. That's fine.
Mary Schweitzer did walk away slightly from Jesus because after her findings, she was honest enough, so she didn't give up her religion. She's still a
Hmm.
Christian and still
Right,
a proud Christian, but she did walk away from young Earth creationism.
as she should. You know.
Yes.
So
And
anyway,
it is really weird to see that the young Earth creationists now use her findings to prove that the Earth is young, when the scientist who discovered it walked away from young Earth creationism because of her own findings. It
and since you mentioned that, I want to plug Fazal Rana's book Dinosaur Blood in the Age of the Earth, which is a really good summary of the work that has been done on fossilized soft tissue, not just the dinosaur soft tissue, but and soft tissue is not even really the right word. The fossilized organic material that has been discovered. Like with Mary Schweitzer's work, but also with like there's been cephalopod soft tissue found in the fossil record that has been like sea lily soft or organic remains, things like that. So read Fazal Rana's book; it's really good. It rebuts a lot of really all the creationist arguments. So
Mhm. Okay. Continue.
yes,
I know some distinguished physicists may be plotting jihad. I have no idea. But by and large, atheism has replaced any kind of tolerant and forbearing agnosticism as the de
nonsense.
facto standard in Anglo-American scientific intellectual life.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, the religious tradition, that is a very, very long 5,000-year-old tradition, has been made into an object of faint derision
5,000
among
years?
sophisticated men and women,
Hold on a second.
much to the
Hold on. 2,000 years is a stretch even, but 5,000 years? Good lord. You're just like from the beginning of human civilization. I wouldn't say that's the beginning of like academic or of academia. My goodness.
The ancient
5,000 years.
Egyptian atheists, the well known, those were the guys who constructed the pyramids for I have no, what is he even talking about?
I
5,000
I
years.
don't even know. But yeah, no, this is just the persecution nonsense.
Yeah.
That's what this is. He's like, oh, everyone was religious, and now there are these uppity atheists who demand that we be tolerant of them. Oh, the
And
horror.
and
Calorero.
he identifies as a secular Jew, which is basically an atheist. So
Yeah, so it's kind of his fault too, isn't it?
yeah, is he projecting maybe? I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Could be a fun thing if he is.
consternation of people who deeply, deeply admire that tradition. And that, I think, is a
Hey, it's
change in the
RJ.
diapason of life that we need to pay attention to. It's relatively new. I think it started around 1980, 1985. But it has become an accelerating force in intellectual life. If you are minded to be a serious Christian or an extremely devout and Orthodox Jew, or even a serious Muslim, better not go into the scientific community and tell your
According to
fraternity
who?
brothers that that is what you are. Best to keep.
According
Why
to who?
why
Where are you
wouldn't you?
getting this?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, what's wrong? I mean, as long as you do the science correctly, no one's
Yes.
going to criticize you.
No one cares. Literally, no one
No,
cares.
no.
If if you whatever you do outside the lab is of no relevance to anything. It just no relevance. Also, and Jerry, you're right. His tie is made of SpaghettiOs. You are correct. Um, but yeah, no, this is just the persecution porn again.
Yeah. Uh, and I don't. If you have the status that Berlinski has, why would you even need that? Because this is just, it's childish.
Well, persecution. Well, the persecution claims that Berlinski and others like him make are well, they're very attractive because you can say, "Ah, we're the underdogs fighting against the tyrannical system,"
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that's what they do, of course. That's what they believe, which is again nonsense. It's like you're already part of the system. What do you mean?
Well,
No one's trying to take anything from you.
he's a secular Jew, so he's just basically securing his paycheck by catering to a specific audience that will then still fund his life in some way, shape, or form, and he
That's
gets the
true.
attention. So that might still be a thing.
That's true.
See, James, great minds. Few do smugness with more oil than Berlinski. I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
obnoxious fellow. Sorry. Shall we continue?
Yep.
Your
Yep.
mouth closed. And I think that's generally true. It's among the various topics about which it is not a particularly good idea to make broadcast your views.
And then you add, following up on your point,
In a country of
no scientific
over
theory
100 million Christians.
touches
But
on the
alright.
mysteries that the religious tradition addresses. A man asking why his days are short is not disposed to turn to algebraic quantum field theory for the answer. The answers that prominent scientific figures have offered are remarkable in their shallowness.
Okay, pause.
They
Pause. Okay. The hypothesis that we are nothing more than cosmic accidents has been widely accepted by the scientific community. Okay. That's true though. That's not like if you don't like that, you're allowed to say it and you can have your own opinion, but it's a fact. It is a fact that we are the result of variations that have been placed under selection, right? That's just a fact of reality. You can dislike it and hate on it all you want. You can lie about it, which is what Berlinski does, and it's what everyone at the Discovery Institute and Answers in Genesis and the Institute for Creation Research and etc. All do. But it won't change the fact. It won't change the fact that Earth, formed from the formed as part of an accretion disk, nebula. It won't change the fact that the universe is 14 billion years old, and that the Big Bang happened. None of that changes just because you don't like it, and you can say, "Oh, well, that's a shallow. That doesn't really provide me any happiness or any insight into some kind of moral philosophy or ethical philosophy or whatever." And okay, it's not supposed to. It doesn't have to. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that. Oh, weird. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's going to go away. And actually, I just finished The Big Picture by Sean Carroll recently, and he talks about this. He talks about how, like, yeah, the universe doesn't offer us any moral or ethical philosophy, but we have to derive it ourselves. And that may be hard, but it has to be done.
I also disagree with both screens that they showed because
Okay.
science does attack some of the religious claims when it comes to
Okay. Yeah.
how the universe came into being. Those are attacked. How old the Earth is. Those are attacked. And the one that is currently on screen is also wrong because we're not a cosmic accident. It is chemistry that basically got life started. How?
Well, that's what he's
What?
referring to.
Yeah, but so
He's saying not intelligently designed.
if you have a hydrogen molecule and two oxygen molecules, what kind of accident do you need to get water? It's a natural thing within chemistry. They form water, which is basically how molecules are formed. And so it isn't an accident. It's
Well,
chemistry.
he's just using that as an emotional term, right? He's trying to
Mhm.
evoke an emotional response. That's what he's
Yes.
trying to do with that term.
Yes, but he's also downplaying what we know about the known universe,
Yes.
which is something
Yes.
that gets me pissed off. If you're going to downplay it, it's a cosmic accident. This is a fascinating thing how planets form, how solar systems form, how life got started, how life diversified through evolution.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Yes.
the most magnificent story you could ever learn about. It beats every religious book hands down.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And
Yeah, Zach makes the same point. It's an abuse of the word accident. He just means non-directed.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's one of my pet peeves when they say we're all just an accident. No, we're not. It was inevitable
Yeah, I
that
agree.
life formed. The fact that we are here could be because of some accidents, because we had some major extinction events, which finally led to the mammals becoming pretty much the dominant species on the planet. Because we wouldn't have been here if the dinosaurs wouldn't have been wiped out. We
Right.
probably wouldn't have made it. So yeah, if you want to refer to that as an accident, which is still not an accident in my book, it's something that's inevitable because gravity exists. So you're probably going to attract some kind of cosmic object flying through the universe. It's going to be directed to you at some point.
Right. Mammals dominant species laughs in arthropod from Zach. Well, laughs in bacteria, right? I mean, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Wonderful Life is a good book by Stephen Jay Gould, and I think it's like the last section of the book. He talks about the concept of contingency in the history of life, and he talks about how basically took about 2 billion years for the endosymbiotic event that resulted in eukaryotes to occur, which seems very um, which seems very much on contingency rather than selection, right? Because that would have, if it were a selective event, or if it were like natural selection just operating on a population of bacteria, and that could have happened, then it probably would have happened already. But instead, you had to wait 2 billion years for this sort of accidental happening, in which an archaean engulfed a bacterium. And then, as you mentioned with the dinosaurs, that was another contingent event. That the eradication of the dinosaurs was contingent on the Chicxulub impactor, and things like that. And we have planetary cycles that cause hot and dry, or sorry, hot or and cold, um, cycles, and all of these things affect the evolution of life on Earth. And so life on Earth is contingent on these various other factors, which yeah, Berlinski would just say are cosmic accidents. And yes, we do have to have a cosmic diaper for the cosmic accidents. So,
Okay,
so
continue.
yes.
Hypothesis that we are nothing more than cosmic accidents have been widely accepted by the scientific community. And you say, basically, science has nothing to say about life and love and death and meaning.
Hardly
Well,
a
meaning no.
controversial
The rest of
point.
them pretty much yeah. I mean, there's nothing that yeah, you can't. Science doesn't say anything about meaning. Your meaning can be whatever you want it to be. But what do you mean by science has nothing to say about life? I mean, biology is the study of life. I don't know what you mean. Maybe what do you do with your life? I mean, again, that's kind of meaning. Um, Death also, like science says a lot about death. I mean, what is it? Gerontology. That's a field of science. Um, Love. Well, I know he wouldn't like this response, but love is, a series of chemical reactions that take place in our bodies that are the result of millions of years of natural and sexual selection. And again, Berlinski wouldn't like that. He'd say, "Oh, that's so reductive." Well, yeah, okay, it is, but I mean, it's true. You may not like it, but it is what it is. So, whatever.
Okay. By the way, we're going to run out of video. This one.
You're right.
That's
You're right.
first, because we're already halfway in. Oh,
Oh, wait, we are? Gee, well, we're almost halfway through the show, so that's good.
okay. Let's see what they've.
Is it? I mean, if I am asking certain kinds of questions, look around you. There's something there.
Look at the
Open your eyes.
trees.
You're struck by the.
That's the dumbest thing. Look at the trees. That's it.
Look at the trees.
Look around you.
Look around. Why is there something rather than nothing? The Kalam cosmological argument.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So we do have to welcome a new panel member. Immutable is
Who
here.
we got?
If Immutable,
Immutable.
can unmute, which is weird because if you're immutable, how can you be muted?
It's a very good question. I've yet to figure that one out.
See?
Welcome,
Okay.
Mutable Destiny. Immutable Destiny. Welcome. Glad to have you back.
It's going. Good to be
What-
here. What did I miss?
Oh, we're just listening to Berlinski wail about how everyone's an atheist nowadays and everyone's mean to him, I guess. So,
I mean, what else can you do when you're such an innocent Christian in the 21st century? I mean,
well, he's
poor
Jewish.
thing.
Well, he's a secular Jew, which makes it even funnier, I think. That's like, so no one has an issue with you.
I think I know. The thing is too, like I remember saying this in the live chat, but it's like that when I hear those words strung together in that specific way, it kind of reminds me of Dennis Prager, of kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm a Jew, but I'm a Christian, but I'm a Jew kind of thing. This
I wouldn't
weird
be
song and
surprised-
dance of like, I'm a Jew, but believe in Jesus. It's kind of like,
Well, I mean, Jews for Jesus, that is a thing, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, it
he's
is.
kind of in that same sort of vein as Prager's, like, conservatism, secular Jew guy. So he's sort of in that same kind of vein. I don't know what Berlinski's position is on climate change. I wouldn't be surprised if he were a climate change denialist also. I mean, those things go together. Typically, when you have conservative and creationist of some flavor, you typically also get climate change denial. Those are almost always together. So, I actually predicted that PragerU would have
it's
a
kind of like
creationist.
buy one get one free, like conspiracy theory, like.
Yes, yeah, you're right. It kind of or buy two get one free. Yeah, you're right. I predicted years ago that PragerU would eventually have a creationist on because they're conservative, and then they started doing anti-climate change stuff because they're funded by the Wilkes brothers, who are fossil fuel industry moguls. And so I was like, I guarantee they're going to have a creationist on. Lo and behold, Stephen Meyer to the rescue. It's like but anyway. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently this guy is like a mathematician, molecular biologist. What is his training?
So by training, he's a philosopher and a mathematician. They did say, and you point out correctly. I mean, he is or it was, I think, was a biology like research assistant at one point, which is good. That is good. I'm not taking that away from him. But his degrees are in philosophy and mathematics. And I guess he
Interesting
kind of has a
blend.
focus on history of science. Did you say when?
Yeah. No, no, I said that it's an interesting blend.
Oh, interesting blend. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah.
it's kind of weird, like discussing like the history of math and like theism, his involvement with that,
Yeah. Um, uh,
because like,
Meyer is also kind of like that. He's geology bachelor's and then a PhD philosopher.
huh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because Meyer kind of worked in the oil field for a little bit. He was like I don't know what the correct term is, contractor or what. Um, he worked as a geologist for some oil for the oil industry before he went back and got his philosophy PhD.
Right.
So his his doctorate of philosophy in philosophy. um,
Huh.
so, at any rate, we can keep going.
Existence of the universe. Why is that there? You look at the answers forthcoming from the physics community, they can be described in one of two ways. Well, what do you expect? We're here, therefore there's something there. Or it's kind of an accident. These are not the kind of answers intelligent men and women are,
Well, those aren't
are searching
contradictory.
for.
I also
The first one's the anthropic principle, isn't it?
I
think it's a stupid
yeah. I mean,
question.
the anthropic.
Why is the universe here? Because it is. There's no why. There's no meaning behind it. No one planned it this way. No one set it up. No one had any purpose for it. The why question is just stupid.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
I
left
mean,
to the philosophers,
right, and that's the thing. Like, especially given he has a background in philosophy, the question of why, like, it's a valid question, but it's not something like in the purview of science. Like, you can ask
Right.
something like, why is the universe the way it is like the way it is now, and like why
Hmm.
did it develop in the certain way that it did, which is scientifically ascertainable to some degree. But
Hmm.
like why does the universe exist is kind of a really weird question, because if you take the universe to be the set of all things, like the set of all things that exist, like it does, like it seems kind of like a bare minimum criteria to begin like talking about
That
anything.
that is what
Mhm.
universe means. It is the set of everything that exists,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I say that just because sometimes you'll get differentiation between that and like what physicists mean, like by universe, when they talk about like the current state of the universe.
Right. And because his response is the thing he said, oh, physicists may say this or they may say this. Well, those weren't contradictory. Like, it's not contradictory to say one, the anthropic principle, which is like, if the universe weren't the way that it is, we wouldn't be here, which is like trivially true. It doesn't really I don't think it really tells us much of anything. It's just kind of like, okay. Um and then the other one
Yeah,
was, oh well,
I think it's more. Yeah,
do
I
what?
think that anthropic. I think the anthropic principle usually is taken to be mostly kind of like tautological at the very
Yeah,
best. And
right.
so even if it answers it, it's not really. It doesn't give you much as an answer to the
Hmm.
question. It's kind of just like, oh, the kinds of universe that exist or kinds of universe that could exist. And it's like fair, but that doesn't really
Well,
advance like
yeah.
our understanding of the question.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of
And then
like, yeah, okay, it's an answer, but it's not really driving at the heart of things.
yep. Why is water wet? Because water is wet. Well, yeah.
See,
And the other one
see,
was he said that
see,
again.
I'm
He said
gonna
it's a
fight you on
cosmic
that.
accident.
I'm gonna fight you
Wow.
on that because
Are you?
I don't think water is wet.
Okay, it
Anything
gets
we
things wet. Yeah.
Okay.
anything we describe as being wet is
Uh-huh.
when it gets water on it. So it's covered in water that is wet,
Yeah.
or
Well, the
covered,
point I was
or
driving at is just that
you could
he was
even
also
say
saying
covered in a liquid, because you can have a wet paint still.
that's true. That is true. Yeah. The point I was driving at was just that he said also cosmic accident again, by which he means non-directed, not. it- I hate the way he keeps using accident, which is in a very weird sense. He's using accident to describe like undirected, unintelligent phenomena, which is very strange. But again, he's doing it because he has a theistic bias behind it. That's why he does it.
I still think he's describing
Well, I
everything
mean,
as
he's
an
trying
accident if
to.
it's not uh, 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 um, created by a deity. Then it's an accident.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, not like the term derogatory might be a stretch, but it's just like if, and I think this is the reason creationists use this approach for when
Yes.
they talk about like
Yes.
accidental or at least like random processes. It's like, oh, well, you want us to believe that it's just a random like a strictly random process.
Yeah. To
Because
them,
like
it's a
most people,
derogatory
something
term.
being random. Yeah, like there's
Yeah.
some kind of negative connotation that's carried out, like invoking that. But it's much like the majority of these debates come down to is that, okay, even if that theory is incorrect, which, okay, maybe there is something monkeying with the physics, fine, it's plausible, but how would you know that it is doing it rather than just the standard explanation?
Mm-hmm.
How do you delineate and test between those two hypotheses? Because hint, hint, you can't.
Right, and that's kind of what I fall back to in general. Is just that, I mean, and when I say this, I'm not trying to discourage anyone or anything like that. In general, when I hear people say things like, "Ah, well, maybe um, there was some intelligence guiding a process," that in general to me just seems like a slightly more profligate version of the current hypothesis, right? Like you're just adding
Yeah,
an extra assumption that isn't really needed or warranted by the current data. You're just adding that on top.
right, exactly. And I think that's the concerning issue. It's like there's nothing in principle to say you can't have theories
Right.
that just differ by one adding on more assumption than the other. But in the same sense, if you're adding on another assumption for no apparent reason, why should people believe? Like, okay, why take the one that makes more assumptions seriously?
That's
In that case, if
also
they both predict the same
In
thing.
in all fairness,
right.
if you're going to take it seriously, that's going to give them a lot of problems, because if they're going to invoke a god, my question would be, how does God do anything? What mechanism does he use?
Yeah, precisely.
And
I think that's the standard.
every
Yeah,
every
I think that's the
single
kind of question people should
interlocutor
ask.
I've asked that question on Twitter has blocked me immediately.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I've had the same experience with people on Twitter. I mean, Otangelo is even like back when Otangelo used to be active on
Immutable. You
this platform.
weren't you there
Just said like doesn't
when
care.
weren't you there
Mhm.
when I asked Otangelo and he said, I don't have to explain things. You need to explain how how it works in science. I don't have to
Yeah,
explain
I remember
how
that. I
God
remember that.
see? And that's just lame.
Yeah, I remember that very clearly.
If you
Yeah,
are actively asking questions about the science that we know so far, and you're going to come up with a different solution, then at least come up with a mechanism. And if you can't do that, you've
right.
disqualified yourself. And then
Yeah, precisely.
I also I apply this logic to something which is not inherently theistic, and that's panpsychism, which is this idea of consciousness that essentially all matter in the universe has like a sort of proto consciousness, and when you combine molecules in particular ways, that's what generates consciousness. So consciousness is inherent to matter. And while that could in theory be possible, certainly could be,
Yeah.
it doesn't tell us adding this extra character to like photons and electrons and protons doesn't tell us anything extra about how they operate like on their own, and it doesn't give us any additional insight to how uh, particles operate. So it doesn't seem
Yeah,
to
that's fair.
it it could be true, but it just doesn't seem to add anything new to what we already know about particle physics or about how the brain works. So it's like, that's why I
Yeah.
don't really buy into it. So anyway, we can keep going.
They correspond to no deep intellectual need. They're frivolous. Physics really has nothing to tell us, for example, about the origins and appearance of the universe. It has a lot of interesting things to say about cosmology, but it's not the same question. The most radical question you
Okay,
can ask is, why?
That's maybe I don't appreciate the difference trying to be made here, but in that case, like, I really don't understand what he's driving at. Like, if the question that cosmology isn't trying, like, if the answer to your question is not about like how the universe is as a result as the law of physics, I I I I, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Because it's saying like he's saying, oh, physics doesn't do good enough like explaining this kind of thing. But it's like, oh, I want to know how and why the physical universe is and operates the way it does. What? I just don't. It's not registering clearly to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm upset that biology doesn't tell me how to drive my car. Why doesn't it do that?
Yeah, or you get like you're gonna get other weird stuff that they say too, like, oh well, physics doesn't explain the origin of life, and it's like, oh great, I'm sure that'll pop up.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we get that from creationists all the time. Why doesn't evolution explain the origin of life?
Yeah,
Well, that's not what it's intended to do. Like,
Mhm.
then they're like, "Oh, well, you're just dodging."
yeah,
It's like, No, I'm trying to explain to you that this is what the field does. This is what we use the field for. What falls under it. This is what falls outside of it. You're just getting mad that it falls outside. I actually just got a book about abiogenesis a couple days ago. It's titled "The Origin and Nature of Life," or "The Origin and Nature of Life on Earth."
I would
nice.
Probably gonna be a while before I
immediately
get to it, though.
reply with, why doesn't the Bible explain how computers work? I mean,
Yeah,
God only knows. You'll get
yeah.
some weird answer of like, God is the great programmer, so you don't need to ask that question, or some weird,
yeah.
insane bullshit.
I do think it's really funny how like good in general, like people who battle creationism are at coming up with arguments creationists would use. That's always really funny to me.
I mean, the thing is, like, at least my time on the internet has been we you see creationists like retreating like to more and more niche arguments over time,
Yeah,
and either that goes to like some very fine aspect and weird thing about abiogenesis, or like why is the universe a thing, and it's like, well, we don't know, but that isn't really that frankly there's more important questions like scientifically, and in our current like atmosphere that need answering before those questions get answered.
well, and I
They're
think
important, but
uh,
like,
I agree, and I think that's simply because these are the like the last vestiges of areas that have big mystery to them, right?
yeah,
We don't need theism to explain the last 4 billion years of life on Earth. We don't know everything about consciousness.
yeah,
There's a lot we don't know about it, about how qualia is generated and all this sort of stuff. We don't know a lot about that.
We
but
don't
we know about the evolution of the brain.
we don't know about it yet.
Right, we don't know about it yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
we know about the evolution of the brain. We know about the evolution of, the cells that, how they turn into neurons and the evolution of these tissues through deep time and stuff like that. That we do know about. We can trace, all this stuff phylogenetically back to the last universal common ancestor, and then how exactly life got started. Well, we're iffy on that. We don't really have that nailed down yet. And then we have
Yeah, I
quite a
mean,
lot that we understand about like the origin or sorry, the evolution of the cosmos. But we don't have the origin quite worked out yet. So there's mystery there, you know?
yeah, and I mean, I think at a fundamental level, like it really is fallacious to criticize science by saying, "Oh, well, there's things we don't know." Well, of course, like
Right.
that's the game that science plays. Like the trade-off of science is that we can know certain things, but not really everything, because certain questions by their nature fall out of the purview of science. So,
Right.
you know, I think to scientists that are like being brought up in universities and stuff like that, if you think you're going to answer all these questions, you're probably not. Like, you're not going
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah.
to. I mean, like, and that's just recognizing that, like, it's kind of like if I were to ask a mathematician, like, why did it rain on Thursday rather than a Friday, or something like that, or some weird bizarre question that doesn't really like relate in a direct way to mathematics. Well, I don't know. Like, what does that have to do with anything outside of like this frivolous weird question?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. We can keep going.
Coming from the people who still haven't figured out that you can't get striped cows if you breed them in front of striped sticks.
Hey, I
And
have seen rigorous defenses of that passage from creationists.
I
I
mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they try to do that, because their position at a fundamental level is that the Bible cannot be wrong about what it
Right.
says.
well,
And
Right.
so if you think,
in all fairness,
and so like,
close to where I live, there are cows that are completely brown with a white stripe in the middle of their body going all around the body. So I'm still not sure how they got those, but I'll figure it out. I'll go up to the
well,
farmer.
then you know what that means, right, Peter? It's just a fucking miracle.
It has to
Yeah.
be. It has to be. If I knock on the farmer's
There's no
door
other
and
explanation.
he opens the door and I ask him his name and he says Jesus, then I'm going to be converted. But I don't think it's going to
There we
happen.
go. Well,
I don't
that's
think he
the
pronounces it that way. He pronounces it Jesus.
Jesus.
probably
Yeah.
probably thinks you're confused for one of his.
Okay.
All right, we can
Continue.
continue.
Is there something, anything, rather than what? Nothing. Well, why is there?
Dun, dun,
It's
dun.
perfectly possible to propose that there could have been nothing whatsoever. I don't mean some pre-existing stuff. I mean nothing. Well, that's not the world we live in. How come? It's a good question. What's your answer? And when you actually look at the physicist or the biologist or the chemist, their answer is, we know how it happened. We
Wait,
open
hold
our
on.
eyes too.
Pause.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Wait.
Okay,
Those are
that's
two. He said, "Why is there something rather than nothing?" Then he said, "The chemist and biologist, who fields that are ostensibly not related to that question in any way, shape, or form, say we know how the
yeah.
universe got here."
Mhm.
What?
It's a
That's not.
it's a
that's
famous
I-
field of biology, Jackson, the origin of the universe. That's I mean, you've got your
But even if
masters
that's
now.
Yeah, apparently.
Didn't you learn anything about that?
I must have missed all those classes on the Big Bang, I guess. But even
Wasn't that
assuming,
like day one of grad level biochemistry of just like, oh yeah, we know how all these fucking like chemicals and atoms form. Like, don't
Yeah.
ask any questions. On
they
to like citric acid cycle.
they say, yeah, that like, oh yeah, we're gonna teach you how abiogenesis happened. That was biochem in
Yeah.
grad school. Yeah, exactly. Um, But even if that's true, saying we know how the universe got here does not answer the question of, ultimately, like, or how we got here today. I guess from the origin of the universe doesn't explain the origin itself of the universe, and that's not that has nothing. These are totally unrelated. This is nonsense.
Also,
Just abject nonsense.
Also, you can't have nothing because nothing wouldn't have any properties. And for something to exist, it has to have properties. The moment something has properties, it's no longer nothing. It's
Right.
one of the things that they will not learn.
Yeah, it's bananas.
I think
Bananas.
and I definitely think this point has been raised by people better trained in philosophy, like Alex Malpass and stuff like that. But
Mm.
like the kind of nothingness he's referring to is like this philosophical nothingness. I don't, at best, like physics doesn't attempt to touch that because it's not really it's not really a coherent thing. Because the major question is like if what you take nothing to be as like the absence of any quality whatsoever, isn't that a characteristic itself that defines something?
Ooh, roasted.
I mean, it's just
That
like
is an interesting.
I don't
That is an
know.
interesting point. Okay. Yeah.
Like if you take that notion seriously of like letting like relaxing a definition to say like, oh, a lack of a characteristic constitutes a characteristic itself, which you get hot water for that. But if you take that seriously, at best, nothingness as it's like commonly thought of isn't coherent as a concept in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny if you go if a theist makes the claim that there once was nothing and then the God created everything, that means that the God is nothing. Because if there was nothing, but there was a God, that was the only thing that existed, then the God is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole concept of a timeless being creating time. I don't know how that works. That seems to
It
me a
can't create
contradiction in terms.
Jackson. It can't create because creating is change over time, and if you're not in
Right.
time,
Yeah.
you can't create. You're stagnant.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Or how can you be timeless but interact with time? I don't know. I'm sure there are uh numerous theists who spend all their days thinking about that, but I personally don't, because it's just in my opinion
I
it's not really
think
an
I
interesting
think
question.
I
But
think I think you just misspoke. There are numerous theists who never think about that because that would
I
ruin.
actually I gave a talk to a philosophy club when I was at LSU Baton Rouge, and they were talking with, or so one of the people who was there, it was like a younger guy, and his dad came, and they were theists, and one of them had mentioned, oh well, God can explain such and such thing, and one of the philosophy students was like, well, how do you get, how do you derive time from a timeless being, or physics from a metaphysical being, or or material from an immaterial being, things like this. And they were just kind of like, they just kind of sat flabbergasted. I don't know.
Those are good
I mean,
questions.
Oh,
there was
they didn't appeal. They didn't appeal to Bill Craig for that one. They didn't hit up
I don't
William
know
Lane
what's his
Craig for that
response to that.
that one.
What's his response?
I don't fucking know.
Oh, I thought.
Some
Well, you said,
jumbo.
I thought you might know what his answer is. I don't know. Like I said,
I
I'm sure Craig has thought about it, and he's probably written a whole book on it or something. But I don't know.
probably.
Um, I don't even. I mean, there's nothing to. It's not like there's anything to write about, really. We've literally never observed, material coming from immaterial, or time coming from timelessness, or anything like that. So I don't know what exactly you would write about. So ah, whatever.
Who knows? Probably with Craig, it's going to be something about the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem or something like that.
Probably. Um, you know what? Now that you mentioned it, God, nothing. The every time I think about that, I'm just gonna remember Sean Carroll being like, "Actually, I have I can't remember which one of them it was, but he's like, I have him here on video, and he said your interpretation of the theory is wrong."
Oh yeah, I mean it's
Like
it's
that was
it's a
so
classical
good.
apologist move of just like, oh well, I can disagree. It's just like, oh, well, you're not reading their theory incorrect. It's like, well, the authors of the theory say actually that you're the one that's not doing it right. So I don't know about that one.
Right? Yeah. No, that was Carroll pulling that on Craig. That was pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie.
But it also reminds me of times where like Bart Ehrman and like Mike Licona have debated, and
mhm,
like to the point of like the central question there is like about historicity of Jesus, and
right.
like Mike Licona famously wants to make this kind of point that like, oh, we can have supernatural causes as part of like as part of our presuppositions, whereas naturalism just takes,
Mhm.
whereas science just takes naturalism as presupposition. And he goes on to like try and present these sources. And Ehrman's just like, oh yeah, but none of them actually like use the assumption of God or like any kind of like divine intervention in any of their published literature. So
Mhm.
like you're wanting to use this source to make that claim as ad hoc
Right.
or just
Yeah.
flat out false.
Right. And the I mean, okay, my thoughts in general sort of on miracle claims are, as as Peter knows, because we did a video on Lord on the miracles at Lourdes in Lourdes, France a while back, the supposed
Hmm.
like Mary healing people in the waters at Lourdes, the grotto.
Yeah.
And the thing about there's a very real trend of the closer in time you get to today, the fewer and fewer miracles are reported at the grotto. Which, like, I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
You also
We get
you also have
better
to
and
Right.
take into consideration, so of the thousands upon thousands of people who went there, according to the people who run that particular place in Lourdes, they have what, 67 confirmed miracles, which
I
I
mean,
I
even
think,
one is impressive.
well, but it's less than coincidental, right? 67 on
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
out of thousands upon thousands. I mean,
Yeah, the papers on that are like systematic analyses of like the numerous people who are still alive today, and the records of people who have been, even the ones who are or who claim to have been healed even shortly thereafter, none of them are like miracles, are like in the sense of what we think of miracles, like contradictory to nature. They are all things that are possible. None of them are like, I put my arm in or my stump in the water and my arm returned,
but
something like that.
so
Um,
what gave it away for me? Do you know what gave it away for me that it might not be true?
what?
They closed down when COVID hit.
That's true. They,
Ah,
they
see?
did do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if there would
Yeah.
be any place on earth where you would be safe and where you could possibly get healed, it would be Lourdes, right? And why did they
That's
close it?
true.
Why on earth did they close it?
They're denying people the miraculous healing waters. How dare they?
Exactly. I mean, that's
Anyway, we're way off
kind of
topic at this point.
yeah, and we're
Okay.
also, so we're now at the half mark of the video, at halftime.
Okay, we
So
should keep going.
we're not going to finish it anymore.
There's something, and we can explain the origin of all that by appealing to some pre-existing something. Are you satisfied with that? If not, well, you're not scientifically literate. Lawrence Krauss makes exactly that same argument. Well, the reason
That's
the universe
not the
popped
argument
into
he made,
existence
actually,
was
but
a
all right.
pre-existing quantum field from which it arose by a probabilistic
And they have
measure.
no real solid idea, do they?
None whatsoever.
And yet, they continue to
Oh
push
my
their theories
fucking
out as if
god.
it's science.
Here, Pete, let's
Well,
pause it.
Let's be fair. Wouldn't you do the same thing if you were?
Do you want to expand?
I mean, like the most, like, in my opinion, the most like demonstrable proof of like quantum fields existing is the what's called like the Kazmaier effect, if you're familiar with it.
I'm not. Please do tell.
So the basic idea is that, like, imagine that you have like two metal plates and you push them like together, or like, so you push them in such a way like that they're almost touching, and we're talking so close that like they're within like microns or nanometers of like touching each other. And
Okay.
so the idea is that you should expect that if there aren't quantum fields existing, that these two metal plates should just stay there and really shouldn't move at all, because even like particulates of air, like the cross section in the area that they have of those particles is too large to get in there and to kind of like collide with them and make them interact. Although a thing that does occur is that, like, a prediction of like quantum field theory is that, like the guy was saying, probabilistically you can have particles that are generated from excitations of quantum fields. And in particular, what that'll do is it'll generate photons that are relatively high energy, and it'll end up crashing into these barriers. And so what you should predict in that case is that, given enough time, you should see these beams that are like relatively parallel to each other start to diffract a little bit. So there should be like widening between them over time. And it's exactly what you find.
Okay.
It's exactly what you find. You define like this gradual diffraction of these like metal plates over time, and there's not any good way to explain it outside of appealing to quantum fields, because by definition, like, the experiment is designed in such a way where if you where you're rolling out the possibility of other things doing stuff, because
Mhm.
particulates of matter that could, interact or contaminate the experiment are just too big.
Mhm. Okay.
So I mean, I'm very surprised, like, that he's rejecting things like quantum field theory
Well,
or stuff like
RJ
that,
did
and
say
just
earlier that
writing it
he's a
off.
Big Bang skeptic, so
I mean, that's wow. That's, creationists know no bounds with the kind of things they'll deny, but wow, that's yeah, that's something.
I think
I can't understand though why somebody who's like a mathematician or just not very familiar would reject it though.
I think Jackson just got summoned by his cat and step
Good.
away.
I'm back.
It
All
sounds
right.
like it.
All right. Well, that is interesting. This is well, it's Berlinski. I'm sure he thinks his opinion is the only correct one on it, so it's whatever.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Alrighty. You want to keep going?
A leading physicist, I sure would. If I had a theory that deep down I knew was no good, but there were all sorts of emoluments, richness, awards, prestige associated with, I would push it for all it's worth too.
Is this why we get these arguments about climate change where
Oh
the
no!
same scientists can't tell you?
No, I'm talking about the top physicists. Climate change,
okay.
we got to go down that ladder all the way into the bottom.
And yet,
Oh my
for a lot of
God!
us, it's just a mush
Okay.
out there. In other words, you're saying the top physicists, and what I'm saying is, when we take a
Wait,
look at
pause.
climate change,
Pause. Actually, never mind. I want to hear what he has to say.
we have a community that can't tell us the temperature in a week within
Oh
10
my
degrees.
goodness!
But they can tell us the temperature in 100 years within a
All
1
right.
degree.
All right. Let's pick that apart.
Scientists
so
who
with this
do
idiot-
climate change do not work at the Weather Channel. It's
So
not.
yeah, what this idiot does not understand is the difference between weather, which is the short-term effects that we have in. May have to refresh. Okay, that's fine. The short-term effects that that we see in temperature and the amount of precipitation and humidity and all that jazz, and then there's climate, which is uh, uh, um, the long-term trends that we see in precipitation and temperature and humidity. These are very different things. These are not the same. You can see like the weather, has all these, these fluctuating variables. But if you actually look at the trend over the past century, for instance, you can see that there's been a very clear trend of increasing temperatures over the entire planet. The entire planet. And so he's doing what Jim Inhofe did back in was it 2003 or whatever, I think it was, in which Jim Inhofe like brought a snowball onto the Senate floor and said, "Aha, look, how can they say there's climate change if there's snow outside?" Well, dummy, that's not what climate change says. Climate change doesn't say there will be no snow. It says that the temperature of the planet has been getting progressively warmer for the past 2 centuries. And then for Berlinski, who, I mean, of course he's a climate change skeptic. He is anti-evolution and a conservative. So, I mean, the Venn diagram is a circle again. Of course, he also rejects, climate change and classifies them as the low tier scientists. We're not talking about the top level physicists. Want to remind everyone, Lawrence Krauss, who is a very well known, maybe I don't know if you would say he's a top physicist. I don't think his what is it, H index is really that high, but he is a very well known physicist in the field. He has written a book on climate change. It's titled "The Physics of Climate Change." So physicists very often are involved in papers on climate change, right? There's that famous tweet in which someone told this woman,
It's almost like it's doing physics.
right, yeah, like the fluctuations of of like pressure in the atmosphere and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's all physics, right? Now, how this plays out over over
Yep.
miles is the purview of meteorology, but the actual atomic interactions that lead to this, well, that's physics and chemistry. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
God, he's so stupid.
it's kind of bizarre that we're getting like really old arguments about like climate change when demonstrably in like the 70s and 80s, the effect of fluorochlorocarbon emissions that were just
Hmm.
destroying the like just obliterate.
You're kind of roboting immutable.
Such
You're
weird
you're breaking up
arguments
a
he
bit,
did.
Immutable.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, there's not even bad weather.
But is there bad climate?
Beat me to it.
It might be because we've got some fucking hellish rainstorms lately in Florida. So I don't know what the fuck's going on.
We just had
Well,
a
you're in Florida.
storm.
That's your first problem.
We just
Oh,
had
I know.
we just had a storm. They're still clearing the roads with fallen trees and stuff like that. So, and it's
Yeah.
something. While I said that, something fell over outside because it's still here, the storm. So I'll have to go check after the show what happened. That was a pretty loud bang, though.
Yeah.
Probably some big ass tree.
I hope not. I
Yeah, probably.
cleared a lot of trees over the summer, so I should be safe. But yeah, well, you never know.
All right.
Find out.
Let's keep listening to this terrible train.
And what I'm saying is, you're saying these top physicists, but isn't it pervasive? Isn't this a pervasive problem throughout science?
To a certain extent. Look, science is an enormous enterprise. How many guys, how many women, men and women, affirm themselves as scientists worldwide today? Do you happen to have the number? It's 7 million. 7 million people are engaged in the scientific enterprise. And of course, you're going to find very repetitive sociological patterns when there is something as important as the environment or climate. You're going to find groups forming, factions splitting off from the initial group, a tremendous amount of propaganda, elaborate approaches to government resources. There's a great deal of money to be had, and it's not coming from the private sector, it's coming from the federal government. When I talk about fundamental questions about the origin of the universe...
Can we pause for a moment and talk about that for a sec? So again, this is just pure like conspiracy theory talking right here. That's all this is. So brief history on
this is very much like conservative.
Yeah, so brief history.
I was going to say, like, this is very much like conservative wet dreams.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is Fox News, so you know. So remember, science until maybe the past century or so was fueled predominantly. Well, so for a long time, if you wanted to do science, you had to either be in the monastery or you had to have money from a king or a lord to do science, right? So science was a very public enterprise, unless you were a monk like Gregor Mendel, in which case it really wasn't. And then as time kind of went on, and you get the rise of like the first millionaires and billionaires who are like the moguls of empire and are also philanthropists. And then they start, building their own institutes like, Carnegie, Rockefeller, etc. So then they start giving money to scientific institutions so that they can do experiments, things like that. So science was still very public. It really wasn't until the mid 1900s when you suddenly get a switch from science being like, a philanthropy based or universities getting money wherever they can, mostly from tuition, to being largely funded by the federal government. And that in large part was due to such things as like the Manhattan Project, which was totally federal. And then following that, you get the National Science Foundation, as well as other organizations like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NASA, and all those other federal organizations. But these are all fairly recent historically, and so that federal government funding that started because we wanted to give money to our scientific institutions to, well, first beat the Germans in World War II and then the Soviets, right? And so then we beefed up our like public education programs when we had the Cold War, so that students could be taught like the most up-to-date science and history and all that and math, so that they could go into the workforce and produce better technology, especially weaponry. And that still goes on to this very day. And a lot of that, even if you have conservatives like Berlinski and Levin here who think that it's all we're just throwing away tax dollars on this. No, actually, we're not just throwing away tax dollars. These things are important. Remember, fruit fly research in the early 1900s, 19 teens, gave rise to medical genetics. Remember that. Thomas Hunt Morgan, a guy who worked on fruit flies, came up with the concept of genes and mutations and recombination and linkage maps. We wouldn't have medical genetics without the fruit fly research, which is also really funny why, when Sarah Palin was like, oh, they're throwing away all this money on fruit fly research. It's silly. It just shows that they don't know anything about science. They don't know anything about technology or how the government works or anything like that. So,
well, and as bad as that is, you have to remind yourself too that there's people to this day that'll actively deny the existence of genes.
Well, yeah. And unfortunately, some of those people are in biology, but
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like, luckily, those people are very much so less prominent than like modern biological like research, but they
Right.
do exist.
Yeah. The like what is it, like the third wave evolution people are kind of like anti-gene. It's very weird.
Yeah, you always find
Anyway.
weird stuff. But then again, I mean, you have people like what was it? Craig Vent or not Craig Venter. One of the first guys who discovered DNA went on this like tirade of like effectively trying to argue that like people like from Africa and America were like inferior because of like genetics or some shit like that.
Was that Watson or Crick? Was that one of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's one of them. It's a huge thing in the early 2000s.
Okay. Weird. I don't know.
I'm trying to forget. I'm trying to
Anti-gene.
remember
What does
which one it
anyone have
was.
against denim? Ha ha. Thank you. So funny. Oh, yeah, Vadim is right. Lysenkoism, yeah, that was also anti-gene and anti-evolution, because that was they labeled Darwin as and genetics as bourgeois science. They're against that. I did actually see. I have now seen one like uh Lysenkoist on Twitter. I guess it was inevitable. I'd probably see them eventually, but I saw someone post, and it's been a few months now, but I saw someone posting like, look at all the benefits of Lysenkoism, and I was like, huh, I wonder where the kills 40 million people in starvation is on that list. um
God,
Oddly enough, they didn't put that there, very strange. But
that's
they put some other stuff that was like, this isn't really what Lysenkoism is. This was like pre-Lysenko stuff that was then with technology was kind of beefed up later. So no, it was just really dumb. And I was like, are you kidding me? Really? Anyway.
I mean, it's bizarre too because like you have this constant, and it's not just creationism that does it. Like you see it within
Mhm.
like homeopathic circles and other stuff like that. But a lot of, I would say, like a lot of practitioners of like say naturopathy or people doing these kind of like alternative science enterprises are kind of, they have their own like really niche beliefs about what they're doing what they're doing actually is, and it can be like very easily and like not at all related to like the history of the field itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh,
you've
also
noticed that
Jamie E
when you
looked it
deal with
up.
like
It was Watson who said that.
Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was one of the two. I just couldn't recall which
Yeah.
one.
Okay. All right, we can keep going.
But yeah, so I mean, my point in saying that was like, it's not just to say like that you can have random offshoot professors or
Hmm.
mathematicians apparently going down this insane rabbit hole.
Oh, the word or what's the Nobel syndrome? Nobel syndrome, where you have people who, they get the Nobel Prize in some field and they become like super crazy afterwards.
Huh?
You've heard of that?
That's happened to, yeah, that's happened to a few people.
Yeah, it's well,
Can't
that's
remember.
that's why they, I think it was Watson also who was like, life definitely started on another planet and then came here, and I mean, think about like Newton, for instance, who brilliant by all metrics, and then fell prey to alchemy later in his life. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's like, well, and there are a few others. I think there was some Nobel Prize winner who like became a big proponent of like water has a memory and homeopathy and stuff like that after he won the Nobel Prize, which is always a shame. But anyway,
Wouldn't surprise me though.
yeah. All right, well, we can keep going.
Have you ever asked someone who is using homeopathy whether or not they know where sewage goes? It's a really fun question. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. I just saw one of my garbage containers disappear in the woods, so I know now what the loud bang was. That was an empty garbage
Is it
container.
raccoons or?
No, it's a storm. And I did.
Oh,
I
you have a
did.
storm going on. Okay.
Yes, we have quite a severe storm today. So yeah, I just saw. I got a few cameras since we've got burgled, or people had tried to steal stuff. So I put up cameras, and I could now see my garbage container being blown into the forest, which is quite fascinating to watch, actually, because it's a pretty large thing.
Well, please stay safe while you're there.
I made sure that I'm safe. We cut down most of the trees that were endangering us whenever there was a storm, because we had some pretty decent branches come down on the roof, and the females in the house weren't all too happy with the loud bangs on the roof, and they were quite scared. So we took care of that.
We well, that's good. Yeah, we had a big storm here in June, I think it was late June, I think. And I slept right through it, but apparently it was like hurricane level winds that whipped through,
Really?
and it knocked down trees all over from here to
Damn.
from here to East Texas, like trees were just leveled. It was crazy.
That's
Crazy,
the kind of
crazy.
storm.
That's fucking wild.
That's the kind of storm we're having now. So trucks are blown over, trees are blown over. So yeah, it's.
We have a cow in the chat. Fascinating.
Yeah, Mr. Cliff, not related to Mr. Ed, because a 5-year-old can tell the difference according to Kenthoven.
Okay, anyway. We can keep going.
Continue.
Appealing to the very top of the intellectual ladder. When I talk about climate change, we're talking about some competent people, not many, some competent people with moderately conflicting views, both about the origins of climate change. Yes, the world is getting warmer.
It's not true.
The
That
nature
just
of
is
climate
flatly
change,
lie.
the reliability of the climatic models, the theories that go into them, and prognostications for the.
Okay, pause. So actually, we did a video on this a while back titled Is the Earth Warming? And it turns out that if you look at meta studies on climate change models, they're actually pretty good overall. They are not wildly all over the place that like conservatives like to say. They're actually pretty decent. We're on track pretty well with quite a number of the models that have been made. But also the idea that there's this really big debate. No, there really isn't.
No.
There's no debate among biologists or chemists or physicists that we're causing that anthropogenic climate change is real. It is happening. It's been going on since the early 1800s as a result of the Industrial Revolution. Because if you look at any of the other things that they try to pivot to, like, oh, maybe it's the sun. Nope, can't be the sun. We've the amount of heat hitting Earth hasn't really fluctuated in the last 200 years. Well, maybe it's volcanoes. Again, nope. The regularity of volcanic eruptions is not enough to account for the increase in heat. Well, maybe it's just the natural cycle of the Earth. No, Milankovitch cycles occur over tens of thousands of years, not 200 years. So, like, everything they try to pivot to doesn't work for one reason or another. So this is just wrong. This is just a lie. There's not a controversy. We know what's causing it. It's the burning of fossil fuels, releasing carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. And this is gradually speeding up. And you have things like the albedo effect, which are also going to continue to speed up the rate at which the poles melt and all that fun stuff. So, oh, thank you, Jamie E. This is why we pay you the big bucks. The Nobel syndrome case you're thinking of involving homeopathy, water memory, that would be Luc Montagnier, won the Nobel Prize in Physiology Medicine for discovering HIV, for co-discovering. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie E. We appreciate you and
Wow.
everything that you do. Yes, that was what I was thinking of. Yeah. So he discovered HIV, and then later he was like, but homeopathy's real. So. Right, Levin and Berlinski are not going to name any climate scientists. Right, you're right, RJ. They won't do that. Okay.
Future. It's not entirely clear exactly which group has the most overwhelming and persuasive evidence.
Well, let's talk about the
no.
top, if you think this
Lie.
fellow, at least arguably. Darwin. A lot of theories, a lot of arguments, a lot of science, so to speak.
I think it was just like the
What is
one theory,
Darwinism?
actually.
What is that?
Well, Darwin comes a mid-19th century figure. 1859, he published what is arguably his masterpiece, The Origin of Species. And the question that Darwin asked himself was a question that all of the 19th century biologists were asking. What is the nature of life? What is the origin of individual species? How did life emerge from inorganic matter? And what are the dynamic laws that change one species into another, if there is such a thing as a change of species? Don't forget, alchemy promoted a very similar thesis when it said base metals could be transmuted into gold. It was an
Is he
argument
really
for
comparing
transmutation of
evolution
elements.
to
Fucking
alchemy?
Well, Darwin provided an alchemical explanation for
Sounds
biology.
like it.
Species could be transformed into other species.
Wait, so now gravity isn't real anymore because didn't Newton dabble in alchemy? I mean, so now we can discard gravity as well, right?
There's an alchemical reason for why bodies are attracted to each other. Obviously,
It has to do.
obviously alchemy.
It has to do with gold, Jackson. I mean,
Correct. Bodies attract each other, and then they turn into gold
Yeah,
when
probably.
they touch. That's how things work.
no,
yes.
then you give them jewelry. That's how that works.
Definitely. That's the most convincing thing I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's equally as convincing as everything else Berlinski
Yeah,
said
that's
so
what
far.
keeps marriages together.
Species. Well, how can this come about? We don't see it every day. It comes about because there are small variations within each species, and these variations are seized upon by the mechanism of natural selection, which simply means some survive, some don't survive. Over vast periods of time, these small variations accumulate. They converge on a different structure, and various different structures in turn converge on a new body plan, a new organism, a new species, a new entry in the vast pharmacopoeia of life. That's Darwinism.
Okay.
And it's a position which is being increasingly held as a secular doctrine. Comparable to the Book of Genesis.
Was he right?
Increasingly held.
I have a lot of
mean, it's kind of been consensus for 100 or so years at this point. So, okay.
Comparable to the Book of Genesis?
Yeah.
Well, what he means by that is, it's our religion, of course, because just because if you believe it, there's a really good quote. Who was it? Was it Jamie E? You're gonna have to correct me because I'm probably gonna get it wrong. Oh shoot, was it Mayer? I think it was Ernst Mayer, who said like Darwin had made the philosophers angry because he was the first person to come up with an explanation for life that didn't involve Plato or Descartes or Kant. His explanation was totally, in the material world, had nothing to do with philosophy. I think that was Mayer. But the point of that is it has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with philosophy. It is literally just an outgrowth of science. That is all that it is.
Mm-hmm. And to me, one of the funniest things that they can do is what he just said, is that it's basically a religion. So what you're saying right there is that it's more likely to be false when it's a religion. What does that say about your own religion?
Well, hey, he did say he was secular. In fairness,
Yeah, I don't believe he's. I don't. He might be secular, but he's definitely playing to. I think mostly Christians, because
well, of course. I mean, he worked for the Discovery Institute.
yeah, which
Well,
obviously is not.
Well,
Christian
we know what it actually means. He's agnostic towards the.
He's agnostic towards the what?
We know what it actually means. We know that he's actually just agnostic he's agnostic towards the religion of scientism.
Right.
That's probably it. Yeah, that's probably it. But you would be surprised.
Now we're really playing four-dimensional chess.
Yeah, but you would be surprised that if you ask a theist who claims that evolution is a religion, and you confront them with the fact that so it's more likely to be false because if it's a religion, they're not too happy that they made the statement. I mean,
it is always funny when they say it. They do have
Yeah.
a tendency to say religion is bad when they're religionists. You know, it's I don't know. If I said science was bad, that would make me look a little silly.
but by the way, Jackson.
Well, religion is bad,
have-
except for
we
our
have-
religion.
We have 7
Correct.
minutes left in the show. 1 minute 46 left in
Oh.
the video.
Oh, let's
So-
do it. Let's do it.
Let's see.
I have a lot of doubts, and so do other people.
I guess we're going to
There
speed
are
run the stupidity.
many places when one looks at Darwinism, when one says, hey, look, this just isn't a scientific theory. It's a collection of anecdotes. Why did the giraffe develop such a long neck?
No.
Well, you wanted to reach
No.
the trees on the top. Well, how come
No.
other animals didn't develop the long neck?
Oh,
Well, they didn't want to reach the
That's
fucking,
Lamarckism.
come on.
That's not even Darwinism. That's Lamarckism. Come on. Peter, keep going. Keep playing it. We got to get through
How
this.
come this
Well, let's see what he says, because we know it's coming. We know it's coming.
To mate. Other kinds of eels are perfectly happy fornicating close to home. Well, it
Why
worked for
does
one seal,
migration
didn't work
happen?
for the other. Why aren't women born
Okay.
with tails like cats? Well, women don't seem to need the tails, even though it would make them even more alluring than they are. Why don't cats
What?
Whoa. Excuse me, what? Boy, where did that come from? Holy shit.
Oh, no.
Boy,
Berlinski's
going
a,
straight out with the furry shit. Okay.
Berlinski's a furry.
I didn't know.
No.
Holy shit.
No.
Apparently. Put some tails on my fucking women, make them all the fucking hotter. Holy shit. Okay.
No.
Didn't know.
No. Oh,
Boy, it's not
no.
fucking around. All right.
I'm going
Oh my
to I'm going to
God.
Christ.
I'm going to clip that for
Oh,
as a
man.
reply for everyone who cites Berlinski.
Please.
Oh, Lord.
Please clip that, Peter. Please. Oh my
Oh.
God.
Women with tails. He would prefer women with tails.
Oh.
Oh my God. Yes, genetically engineered cat girl is correct. That's what he wants. He's like, "Where's my government issued cat girl?" Oh no.
What? So do they need prehensile tails or just tails to just?
Oh, you know they need prehensile tails, Peter.
Uh-huh. Your fantasy is
Oh, my
going
God.
right now, right?
We have to finish this. I have to see what else he said.
Oh,
Oh.
man.
He's got 51 seconds to wiggle himself out of the comment that he just made.
the world, considering they have every reason and every opportunity to do so? Well, they're content being our domestic masters. I mean, the anecdotes pile on interminably, and there's no fundamental leading principle.
Do you find
Natural selection is not a leading principle,
that
apparently.
most
Okay.
atheists, more prominent atheists, embrace Darwinism?
Every last one.
And why do they do that?
Because it's a secular myth. Even
it's true?
atheists need some compelling myth, how we got here, what we're doing here. what our
That's not
purpose
true.
is, how we got here. It was an accident. What are we doing here? We have
Is
no
he not
idea.
aware of like Sartre and the
What is our
nihilists
purpose? It's
or
replication,
the
fornication
absurdists?
and replication. That's about it. But it's a very, very viable myth. People believe it. They act according to it.
I mean, so wow. Okay. I mean, Darwin, when he developed the theory of evolution, was a Christian.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And for some
Yeah, no,
reason,
you're right. You're right. Yeah.
we're at the end. This is the
Wait,
end
that's
of.
it?
Yes,
It just stops in the middle of the sentence?
yes.
Fascinating.
That's it? What?
Okay.
No. Oh man.
So, okay, so his
Oh,
complaint
that's just not right.
is basically he doesn't understand what so what I'm getting from this is he asked someone, it seems like what he did was he said, "Hey, why do some seals migrate?" And the response he got was, "Well, it was part of their history to migrate and, and reproduce over here." And he just kind of went, "Well, I don't like that." It's like he didn't offer any.
That just sounds like a story.
Right, yeah, he's like that. You're just, yeah, that's a just so story. It's like, well, if we have the evidence to back it up, then it's literally not like it's just what happened. The thing with the giraffe is, well, one again, that's like literally that's Lamarckism. The giraffes just reached up and got longer necks. The the explanation that Darwin would have offered is that there was a pool of genetic variations, and from that pool, the individuals with longer necks, maybe they could, they looked prettier to females, or maybe they were better at reaching trees or at reaching leaves on trees or what have you, or defending themselves from predators. And those selective pressures selected for individuals with longer necks. That was the Darwinian explanation, not that they reached up. My goodness.
But that's just a theory. A game.
Yeah. Well, and I think there was a lot of there's a lot of like sexual selection stuff involved with the giraffe's neck too. I mean, a lot of times when you have like really exaggerated features, there tends to be a sexual selection reason for that, because
Yeah.
females like very exaggerated parts. Um, but yeah, he didn't really say why he didn't like those things. He just said, well, those are just hypotheses. Like, well,
Those are
okay.
anecdotes, is what he said.
Right, he said they're anecdotes, which they objectively are not anecdotes, because that's not what an anecdote means. So just no
I'm
in
starting to
general, I guess.
wonder where this guy got his like philosophy degree from, because
Oh,
he's just like redefining terms, or
I
just
actually
using
I
them in a
just had it.
very non-traditional way.
I just had it pulled up. David
It's
Berlinski.
like
Hold
what,
on.
Purdue?
Pretty. He went to PragerU, don't you know? Um,
There we go.
I just had it pulled up. Hold
Learn
on.
how
Actually,
you too can indoctrinate your children into hardcore conservatism.
so his PhD is from Princeton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, Princeton must have some really special education programs then. Boy.
Well,
So,
I wouldn't blame Princeton for this for the same reason I wouldn't blame Harvard for Nathaniel Jensen. They're paid to be misleading and deceitful. That's literally Berlinski's job.
no,
And
I
so,
know.
yeah, but yeah.
And what is it? Jonathan Wells, the whole like he became an evolutionist he got a degree to destroy evolution from the inside out or something like that.
Right. Did you see the Professor Dave video on that recently, or it just came out?
Yeah.
Do you know
Yep.
who? Do you know who co-authored that script?
You?
It was me. I did it.
You dabble your fingers in that a little bit.
I co-wrote the Stephen Meyer, which was my magnum opus. The
Nice.
Gunter Beckley one and the Jonathan Wells one. I co-wrote all three of those. The Stephen Meyer one felt very cathartic to write, because I've had all those ideas in my brain on Meyer, but I've kind of put all of them out in different videos, but never in one place. And so writing that script for Dave was like I put all of them in one place. So if someone says like, if anyone talks about any of Meyer's arguments, you can go like here, 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 and here are the rebuttals to his arguments, just all in
Yeah.
one place. Um, the
I
Gunter
still think
Beckley.
that the oh god.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the best argument that the Discovery Institute has put out, and not to say it's good, but I
Mhm.
think probably like one of their better arguments is the one by fucking what's his face, Michael Behe, whole irreducible complexity thing. And
It's
granted,
certainly,
everybody with half a brain knows that it's been falsified, but
yeah.
it's a very good like tactic to try and employ.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely very popular. It is a very popular argument because it's very easy to understand. The concept of irreducible
Yep.
complexity is very easy to grasp. And if you can um if you can use that, if you can take a very simple to understand idea and employ it against, much more complex ideas, well that's super useful,
Mhm.
because it can be hard, as we all know, trying to explain the evolution of features to creationists who go, it's irreducibly complex. Then you say, well, no, it's not, because you have these features and these tissues involved and these processes and there's this, and then they just kind of shut down, right? Or they jump to some other subject and, you never come back to it again.
Right.
Um, the Beckley one drove me insane um, because I had to read like 8 of his blog posts, which were all very
Ha
long.
ha. Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, that one hurt. That one hurt to write. I never want to read anything by Gunter Beckley ever again. Oh, it was so much. Um, and then the Jonathan Wells one was actually really easy because I was already familiar with a lot of his major arguments, so just kind of putting those together was pretty easy. But
Isn't Gunther Beckley's kind of like the damage control stuff with the whole James Tour debacle thing?
yeah, so yeah, Beckley is by trade an invertebrate paleontologist, which puts him in spitting distance of me, sadly. I've actually run across his
Boy.
papers in my background research for my thesis, which was sad. Um,
Yikes.
and so yeah, he's we cross paths academically, or I cross his path academically. Um, and But yeah, most of his work is damage control now. He's doing what Casey Luskin used to do back in kind of the early 20 teens, because when Meyer's book came out and he got just absolutely dogpiled, or when his books plural came out and he got dogpiled by every biologist and paleontologist, Luskin would be like, "Oh no, actually, he's right about everything, and you're all big meanie heads. Goodbye." You know, that was Luskin's job. So now it's Gunter Beckley's job. I'm sure he gets paid a
I
handsome
kind of gotta
salary to
wonder.
do that.
I kind of gotta just wonder like what a day in the work of like the Discovery Institute looks like, of just like what they're doing as a 9 to 5
But hunched over their
as a 9 to 5
computers,
career.
yeah, tapping out
Or s-
a Dr. Tapioca Weasel. Hello, what's up?
are they just like bending over at the knee, like waiting for these like evil atheist evolutionist comments, and just like
Yes,
imagining
they
us in like
are.
these Gothic cathedrals to, you know, tear them down so that they can go into a green screen studio and just explain why
No, that's literally what
what
they do. That's literally what they do, like, on a daily basis. They like, when Professor Dave responds to them, like, they light up. That's their whole job, is just responding to people like him. When Behe no, it wasn't Behe. When, or was it? It might have been. I think it was Behe posted some paper in, um the Journal of Theoretical Biology, and there were like a couple population geneticists who were like, "Wow, this is bogus," and he wrote like a couple of blog posts on I think it was Evolution News, rebutting them. Not in the scientific literature, mind you. He had to retreat back home, to tap out his
Yeah.
rebuttals. in part because he literally admitted that he didn't understand part of the criticism they were making, which was kind of funny.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so precious.
he stated that he didn't understand part of Michael Lynch, who's a population geneticist. He just didn't understand the criticism he was making. He was like, I don't really understand how this is relevant. And it's like, sir, this is your model that you put forward. What do you mean? So, yeah.
That's so bad too, because it's like, oh, that's so horrible. Because that makes me think that like they're not, and of course they're not, like they're not actually doing their own research. They're just like retconning like some long extinct theory from God only knows where and trying to apply creationism to it.
Speaking about research,
Anything that's not mainstream.
Jackson, I did check the link you sent me to the original video that we just watched, because I usually download them and then put them in OBS so I can start and stop them. Yeah, it did stop the way this one stopped. It's exactly the same length.
Oh, I believe you. No,
yeah,
I believe you. I thought that was super weird.
I was worried, so I thought maybe the download cut out halfway and I missed part of it, so I just went down and checked. But yeah, apparently that's how they cut their videos.
Oh,
that's
well.
such a weird way to end a
It
video
is.
too.
It is.
It's like The Sopranos, they just cut it off mid-sentence.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like life, Jackson. It just gets cut off at some point. You never know when or why.
Peter, I want my last words to be like the last words of Thomas Jefferson. I want word that my arch enemy has died to be my last words. Like, what? John Adams is dead? Then I keel over, and that's it. I want that to be my final words. My mortal enemy is dead.
I saw a video recently from a guy. I think he was from Ireland, which I thought was brilliant. He had some kind of I think MP3 player put in his casket, and he had in his will told someone, here's a remote. The moment they put me down in my grave, you press the remote. And he started yelling from the casket, hey, I'm not dead. What are you doing? I'm not dead. Hey, hello, get me out of here. I thought that was brilliant. And everyone apparently was in on it, because everyone laughed and applauded as they lowered him down while he was screaming. And I thought, yeah, if you need to go, that's a pretty cool way to go, to just make someone laugh the last minute. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then you can have your own final words.
That's true. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we are 2 hours. We're past the 2-hour mark. So I think we're gonna cut it for tonight. I want to say thank you, Peter, for hosting and co-hosting as always.
Anytime.
And thank you, Immutable, for coming. We always appreciate having you on. It's always fun.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody who is here in the live chat. I appreciate all of you being here and watching the show. So we will see all of you next week, maybe. Well, let's see. 7 days from now is going to be 30 days has to. It'll be 31. Never mind. We'll be on next week, I think. That sounds right.
I mean, it's your show.
We'll be on next week.
That's hard.
It's your show. If you think that there's going to be a show, then I have to work. I signed up for it, so no excuses.
Okay.
Right?
Math is hard, Immutable. I agree. That's why I did biology.
I know a lot of people that did too, and then some people are like, "Oh, biology's hard. I'm gonna go do psychology," and it's like, okay, all right, well, another one down the drain, but all right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. We will see all of you probably next week. So bye everybody.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Till then.